Hello and welcome everyone to this East Lansing City Council regular meeting, kind of hybrid in person, hybrid not. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Babcock?
Present.
Councilmember Bacon?
Present.
Councilmember Watson?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Gregg?
Here.
Mayor Stevens?
Here. Our next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda, and I'm going to make a motion to approve the agenda with the two add-ons that were requested, 3.15 and 3.16. Both of those are simply an introduction to set a public hearing for ordinances, so not things that we're going to be voting on today. Is there a second on that motion?
There's a second. I have an additional add-on.
Okay, what's the add-on?
I'd like to add a special presentation by State Representative Julie Brixie, although I don't see her here, so we might want to move it down the agenda. She has let me know that she's got something to present.
Okay.
Usually it comes after council member comments, but I feel like we could do it after the consent agenda, maybe?
All right, I will consider that a friendly amendment to place a presentation after the consent agenda as a presentation from State Representative Julie Brixie. Okay. All right. There's a motion, a second. City Attorney, was that all right?
Yes.
All right, great. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Great. We are now on to approval of the regular meeting minutes as well as the closed session minutes that are on your table. I'm looking for a motion and or changes to the regular council meeting minutes from July 13th and 2021.
I'll move approval.
All right, there's been a motion to approve. Any second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Bacon, motion by the Mayor Pro Tem. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. And now I will be looking for a motion to approve the closed session minutes that are on your table here. Is there a motion for those or any changes?
Motion to approve closed session minutes.
Great, is there a second?
A second.
All right, it has been motioned and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, same sign. Great, that passes unanimously. We are now on to communications. First is an announcement that written communications received by the council are on the online agenda packet under the little tab called written communication. And next is communications from the audience. However, before we go into communications from the audience, I do have a motion in regards to this. In order to minimize the potential exposure to the coronavirus of individuals wishing to provide public comment at this meeting and all future meetings of the City Council until rescinded, I move to adopt a rule pursuant to MCL 15.263.1, limiting public comment at this meeting to 5 minutes per individual, both in person and on Zoom. Is there a second on that motion?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Bacon. To speak to the motion, since we are going to have kind of a hybrid approach tonight, just to make sure that we are being as accessible as possible. The Zoom participants are going to be getting 5 minutes, and we wanted to keep it fair and make sure that everybody kind of across the board got an equal playing field and equal access to the council. So that is the reason why I made that motion. All right, any discussion further on this? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Great, that passes unanimously as well. We are on to communications from the audience. This is going to work a little bit differently since we have two mediums to communicate with the council. So what we're going to do is we're going to open it up to people that are here in the room with us first. We'll have 5 minutes to speak. Emily will be giving a 30-second warning as well during your time to speak here. Again, you can speak to the council on any issue. And then after we have concluded the people that are in the actual room here with us, we'll be moving over to Zoom, and we'll be calling on names and or numbers and giving them 5 minutes to speak as well. If there are any growing pains, hiccups, then I do apologize, but this is a new way of doing things, and we, of course, thank our staff for helping us out getting to this point, because we have seen an increased amount of participation virtually, and we wanted to try and keep that. So, okay, if anybody wishes to speak to the council, you can approach the podium. If you wouldn't mind stating your name and address for the record. Great.
Sure, thank you very much. Sam Singh, 1837 Cricket Lane, East Lansing, Michigan. thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I will not be using 5 minutes today, but I did want to stop by and just thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your service to this community for the past little over 3.5 years to the community. I want to specifically thank you for your leadership as mayor as you came into that position. I know, having had conversations with you before you ran for office and before you became mayor, I just wanted to say, as a former mayor, that I'm very proud of the service that you provided during a very unique time in our history, but not only our history, but our history as a state and a city, and I think you did a fantastic job. And so I want to wish you the best of journeys as you go on to your next venture, but I did want to say, on behalf of a lot of members of the community, we're just really proud of your service, and we look forward to seeing what you do next in your career as it unfolds. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, and I will attempt not to tear up this soon, but I appreciate you and the road that you really paved for me to even be here, so thank you. Anybody else like to speak to the council?
Hi, Alice Drager, just for Eli tonight. I just had a couple of requests. One is if we could get an explanation at the right time for item 3.3, approve a contract change to the Fair and Impartial Policing consultation contract with CNA Corporation. A couple of us puzzled over this, and we could not make heads or tails out of what exactly it was aiming to do as a change. So it would be helpful if you could explain that in English. Which is not to say our lawyers don't speak English, but it would help if we could understand what that change was about. The second item was 3.1, item D, appointing Mark Meadows to the Seniors Commission. That was surprising, so if we could have some explanation. And finally, I just wanted to introduce some members of my staff. I'm excited that our staff has grown and strengthened over the course of the pandemic, although we've not gotten to see a lot of each other. So to my far right is Andrew Graham, who many of you know has been doing government reporting for us, doing an excellent job. Andrew has a bachelor's degree in journalism from Syracuse University, so comes to us with real chops. Has also worked for us while he was in school. So it's exciting now that we've recruited him, and he's doing a great job basically being our lead city reporter now. Heather Brothers, who is completing her PhD at Michigan State University, who has been doing our reporting on policing, particularly on the study committee on an independent police oversight commission, and she'll also be reporting for us on the oversight commission itself. So I'm very excited to have Heather working with us as well. Nathan Andrus with us, who actually used to work for the city and now works as a data analyst and a FOIA coordinator for Eli. And Dylan Lees, who is pointing at a camera at me, who is doing photography with us tonight. It's exciting for me to have Dylan with us. Many of you may know Dylan from his work with All of Us Express Children's Theater. We also have Dylan's parent, Lisa Lees, who works with us in tech, and Morgan Lees, his sibling, who works with us in tech as well. So I'm excited to have this team and just wanted to put some faces to names. I'm very proud of them all. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Oh, and also very excited that a former Eli reporter is about to become mayor, if I may say so.
All righty.
Nice to meet you all.
All right. Anybody else from the audience wish to speak that is here in person with us? Going once? Going twice? All righty. We will move on to our Zoom callers, if we have any with us. I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Emily.
Caller with the phone number ending in 534, you are now permitted to address council.
Hi, this is Ann Hill at 685 Ruteo. I'd like to address council tonight in response to some public comments at recent city council meetings, encouraging council and the city to pursue moving our current election process to a ranked voting process. My comments are not intended to be either for or against such a process, but are meant to raise caution in pursuing a change in voting process too quickly. This past January 25th at in the Council of Neighborhood Presidents meeting with various neighborhood presidents and Mayor Stevens in attendance, I informed the group that during the course of my own housing study of the city of East Lansing, I became aware of a significant number of individuals who were listed on the qualified voter file that were not qualified voters, eligible to vote in the November 2020 general election. The qualified voter file had been sent to me on November the 12th, 2020, by the city clerk for my FOIA request. In response to my comments, Mayor Stevens offered and did in fact set up a meeting between the clerk, the mayor, and myself. The meeting was very fruitful, and I provided the city with electronic files that identified voters that appeared to be invalid. To date, of the 25,545 voters listed on the November 12th QBF file, over 6,400, or over 25%, should not have been on the file. The Secretary of State identified 1,287 that should be removed because they were inactive. 50 had an address of Cherry Lane, a street that had not existed for over 10 years, 516 that had sold their home at that address, and in some cases, the home had sold an additional 1 to 3 times since then. 226 were 35 to 55-year-olds that were living in fraternity or sorority houses. Some were even females living in a fraternity. Apparently, over 15 years ago, the building housed a sorority and now houses a fraternity. As the majority of the remaining 4,300 plus were former MSU students, most of whom had graduated and moved on to begin their careers and or start their own families. The city clerk and others in her department have diligently been working through the process that the state requires to be followed before someone can be removed from the QBF, and appears to be making some headway. I am sharing this information not to condemn or embarrass the clerk and her staff. This is not a situation created by this clerk, but clearly has been going on for decades, and throughout the administration of many city clerks. The clerk appears to be making a good faith effort to cleanse the QBF and purge the names of those who should not be there. That is only a part of what needs to be done. A process now needs to be put in place to better identify persons that should be removed on an ongoing basis. We heard from Sharon Woods of Land Use LLC that the average renter stays at that address for about 3 years, and that students, especially those staying in dormitories, will stay there less than 3 years. Following the implementation of that new process, I believe we need to have a period of verification that the new process is robust. Again, my comments tonight are to request that council and city manager provide the clerk and her staff with the time and resources necessary to do the job well and not set her up for a potential failure. As you are aware, there is a national conversation going on right now questioning election integrity in various states and cities. I'm looking forward to hearing the results and concerns, if any, from these audits when they do become available, and wonder if there is anything else that could be done in East Lansing to ensure that the voters of the city feel that they have a free and fair election. This is so important to the people of the city, not only in the determination of who our city council members are and other elected officials will be, but also as it applies to various ballot initiatives, including millage rates, income tax, and others. I thank you all for your time.
Thank you very much.
I'm having trouble hearing.
Yeah, can we make sure that voices are there a little bit louder? Thank you. Yeah. All right, would you mind letting in the next caller?
Nicholas Pydek, you are now permitted to address council.
Yeah, hi, can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Sorry I couldn't be there in person tonight. Got 3 babies to put down here in the next few minutes, but I just wanted to thank council and city staff for their work on the Albert Avenue, Albert al fresco. It's just been a phenomenal response. Just talking with Barrio, Jolly, other people downtown there, customers, seeing posts online. This has been such a huge effort, I know, from Adam Cummings. Huge shout out to him and the DDA. But just thank you guys for doing this. I know I talked with Councilwoman Jessie about some possible extensions for this fall, some of the concerns around that, and even thinking through next year in spring, starting it earlier, extending it. And I just want to encourage council to look at some of the data components of this as well. Parking revenues, look at the feedback. I know that Adam put up surveys on some of the various equipment downtown to solicit responses from citizens and people who are using the infrastructure items there. So just a huge praise to you guys. This is something exactly that downtown businesses have needed, especially executing with the art festival and people being able to use these items in conjunction with that. It was just a huge win from our perspective. So my comment is just thank you to council, thank you to city staff, and to please continue to look at efforts like this and be creative, right? Like this is the realm that businesses stay in, is, you know, we get a executive order or we get something in the marketplace that changes, and we just have to react and be creative. And I just want to commend you guys for taking that effort upon yourselves to be creative, try stuff out. Not everything is going to work 100%. But you'll fail if you don't do anything. So appreciate you guys willing to take a risk on this. And so that's all my comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Those are all the callers on the line.
All righty, thank you very much, and thank you to staff for doing what is fairly seamless job on having both in-person and online visitors. So claps all around. That was really great. All right, we are now on to communications from the mayor and council members. I will start with Councilmember Babcock.
Thank you. It's good to be back. We're all still sort of weird and distant, but it's good to be back. I have been working on eviction defense in the city of Detroit, and so as you can imagine, things have been very busy in my day job, so I haven't been out as much lately. But I did manage to get out to volunteer for the East Lansing Art Festival this year, and it was really a wonderful experience. It was great seeing people out there, but it was also really wonderful meeting the volunteers and the staff who put it together. So I'd like to recognize Heather, I'd like to recognize Tim, and then if I start recognizing some of the volunteers I met, I'll miss names, and I don't want to offend people. But Renee in the merchandise booth was exceptional. So she was also a lot of fun. She put up with all of my questions. It's good to be getting back to normal, and it's a gradual process, and we're on our way. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Dana Watson.
Hello, can everybody hear me okay? So I just wanted to take a moment, Mayor, to say it's been a pleasure knowing you and working with you. We began on the Human Rights Commission together, and it's been admirable to see you as a commissioner, as a council person, and then as our mayor. And so thank you so much for your service, and thank you for what you've taught me and what you've done for the city.
Thank you, Councilmember Babcock. Or, sorry, Watson. Councilmember Bacon.
It's my turn. I just want to say thank you to city staff on a successful art festival. I was able to get down and enjoy the festivities. It felt like old times. It was wonderful and hot and just an awesome day. And I just want to thank you for all the effort. I know the amount of work that goes into that and is greatly appreciated. I want to make comment to high school sports. I'm hoping for a safe return both educationally and to high school sports. We returned this Monday along with cheer and volleyball and all those other things. And anyone who's out there listening, continue to be safe. Hope to have a successful season, that we make it all the way through, avoiding some of the pitfalls and learning some of the lessons that we learned last season out there, and just have a safe and healthy season for fall sports this year. I want to give congratulations to, including myself, Ron Bacon, Director Elaine Hardy, Mr. Adam DeLay, and Karen Honey, Commissioner, for the successful adoption of the name change to Pinecrest to Dr. Robert L. Green Elementary School. This is maybe one of the more important endeavors that's happened in our city. This will be kind of a flashpoint in the place where we'll begin to tell a lot of the history and kind of why we are here, who we are, and our way forward. Very important history. There'll be more to come along with the state markers and some other initiatives from us in September. We'll keep you abreast of that, but it's going to be an amazing and beautiful community celebration of both our civil rights and just human rights history here in East Lansing, which is robust and important. Let's see here. I I want to give congratulations to East Lansing High School's Taylor Manson.
Taylor Manson. There you go.
An Olympian. We have an Olympian from our high school and from our area. Just want to say congratulations. I've known her, she grew up with my daughter. I've known her like pretty much my daughter's entire life. Great family, such a great kid, and just someone literally who said they were going to the Olympics when they were a little kid and just followed it through. It's like a Disney movie. It's a beautiful story. Bronze medal in the mixed 400, first year of this event, so they'll be their first time medalist in the history of the mixed 400. Just an incredible accomplishment in the world to be an Olympian, first of all, but to actually receive a medal. It's just an incredible feat. And last but not least, just shout out to Aaron Stevens. I can think back to meeting Aaron. I think we were doing something with the MLK Commission, and I didn't know he was a city council person or any other person. I just knew his energy. Like he just was like, it was right in one of these hallways down here, and we were doing some, I think some presentation, and you were like, I was like, who's this guy's energy is just off the charts. He's just friendly and awesome. And then I got to learn that he's so much more. He's just a natural leader. He's fearless. He takes criticism and just it rolls off him like a duck's back. And that's what you got to have to be good in this role, and he's good at it. So I want to thank you for your leadership and wish you the best, and don't go too far. Come back. That's it.
Thanks, Ron. All right, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I wrote down a whole bunch of things, but maybe I won't say them all tonight. I did want to just speak to the comment that we had from Mr. Padek about Albert Alfresco. I did have a vigorous conversation yesterday with several downtown business owners, including Mr. Padek, about the possibility of extending, and if you actually are so interested, you can look through our council email and see that we have received several suggestions that we might want to extend or even permanently close that street. I think there's a couple of reasons why that's not a great choice at the moment. Chiefly just the fact that what we see downtown at noon with families playing and kids playing hopscotch is very, very different from what we see downtown at like 2:30 in the morning after the bars have let out. And our police department is already a little strained with the response even before the students have come back from MSU. And we have a pretty cabin fevery population that I think will strain that further. So rather than take what has been, in my mind, a wild success and invite failure, I think it's best for us to kind of rest on our laurels, regroup a little bit, maybe give our downtown placemaking team a chance to catch their breath, since they have been sprinting flat out for probably, since the pandemic started. So I also am very cognizant of the fact that our amenities should serve every part of our community, and that includes the student community. So we definitely don't want to deny them the benefits of our downtown placemaking. My thought is possibly revisiting the Albert Street closure in the springtime. I think it very much was a lovely complement to the Arts Festival. So my suggestion, and obviously this is in the future, would be to look at setting that back up in late April or early May, so that it was in place for the Arts Festival, and so that we had a final month while we still have students in town to kind of see how it works. When they are at the end of their year rather than at the beginning of their year with a lot of pent-up energy. So I also want to just mention that we are not done with downtown excitement. We are dismantling that infrastructure on Albert, but we are installing it in other places. If you have not had a chance to go down to the Division Street Garage and check out the parklets, which are kind of like sort of little riser seating arrangements, I would very much suggest maybe going to Campbell's and grabbing a sandwich and finding a little shady spot on one of those benches and enjoying our new mural that was just installed. It is very pleasant. So although it is not Albert Alfresco per se, it is outside and lovely. Let's see. Oh, and I did, as Mr. Padek mentioned, we do have QRI codes down there. Did I say that right? I don't know.
Yeah,
Whatever
QR codes.
those square things are that we're supposed to use now. And we are gathering information and community feedback right up until the end of that August 15th date. So if you have not had if you have enjoyed or not enjoyed that installation, please take a second to fill out that survey. It's quick and it's easy, and you can kind of have a voice in what we do next downtown. One little housekeeping thing that I just want to drop into conversation. I've had a few conversations with homeowners in East Lansing lately about being frustrated as they try to do their own home improvements with just parts of our code that are really seeming to be written with the idea that you will be hiring a contractor to do the work on your house. And I think that we have a population coming into town of young families for which a home in East Lansing is maybe a little bit of a budgetary stretch. A budget that can stretch to a mortgage cannot necessarily stretch to a lawn care contractor or somebody to do your home improvements for you. And so I think that we do need to start looking at that, those parts of our zoning with an equity lens to just make sure that we are giving people the opportunity to live, comfortably, and that includes being able to work on their own homes. So for future conversation. And then, of course, I need to embarrass the hell out of Mayor Stevens and make him cry so that I'm not the only person who cries in council meetings. Aaron and I met in 2017 at an Ingham County Democrats meeting, and he might not remember this, but he introduced himself to me by sticking out his hand and saying, "I'm Aaron Stevens, and I'm running for East Lansing City Council." Which led to coffee and led to a long friendship. So I have known you since before you were elected. You were a great source of inspiration for me when I was running for election. I leaned on you a lot for a lot of advice, and I really appreciated you filling that position for me. And I have really enjoyed serving with you and watching you blossom into this role that you involuntarily had selected for you, as a certain someone is about to. Thanks so much. I think that it is fascinating that this is your first and also last in-person meeting. And so I am committing to be disorderly so that you can gavel me into silence several times tonight. And
That I appreciate.
And use that hammer that you have not had a chance yet to use. I cannot wait to see what happens next. I fully intend to follow through with my threat to text you at 3 o'clock in the morning when I have city business that I want your opinion on. So you cannot escape. But I am really looking forward to seeing what you do next.
Make it 4, and we'll have a deal.
I mean, I'm up, so for sure. Absolutely.
Thank you. I love you, Jesse. All right, here's going to be the soppy one. So I'm going to ask people to bear with me a little bit. I usually give long-winded statements anyway, but since my last meeting, I have a few things that I wanted to say, and I'm going to do the best I can without crying. So keep that in mind. 4 years ago, I was knocking doors in the city's neighborhoods, attempting to garner what information I could about the issues that were currently going on in the city. This is a city that I was fairly new to. So the first time I knocked doors, all I really did was listen. I heard about issues in development, our finances, and a lot of complaints about the deer. But the most important thing that I heard was a passion from the community about their city. I have often said that East Lansing local elections are more contentious than congressional races. And after a fairly long conversation and debate about my race and hers with now elected Congresswoman Alyssa Slotkin, I can say that I had somebody on the other side that agreed too. But that is the beauty of our city. We care. We have always cared. It is that care that has led us to achieve goals that we didn't even know we would set. We passed historic police and criminal justice reform legislation throughout the city, not only establishing an oversight commission, but tearing down institutional and outdated policies and fees that were holding us back for decades. In our strive towards equity, we're going to encounter some pretty difficult moments and conversations that we don't want to have. Some of those are happening right now. And as I sit here, As the youngest mayor of the first majority non-white council, I know that we are at least on the right track. Change isn't easy. We endured a lot, and truthfully, sometimes I was scared for myself even, and for where we were going. But truthfully, people wouldn't be trying to stop you if you weren't doing the right thing. We have forever changed the landscape of our city and downtown for the better. I encourage folks to be really proud of what we have done. When I walk downtown now, after one of the worst years in business history, I see families, seniors, students, and children running across enjoying the same environment as everyone else, because we have truly begun the process of creating an environment for everyone. Just this past month, we broke ground on an office in the downtown. This isn't commonplace. 4 years ago, I don't think anyone really believed that we could see that growth incorporated into our downtown, and that this could lead to a new reality. But here we are, and this is substantial. This is progress. When I ran, I wanted to see a better relationship with our university. I wanted so desperately for that divide between these two entities that truly relied on each other and benefited each other to dissipate. It was a battle between whose fault it was, and the conversation was why the solutions proposed would never work, not what solutions would. With new leadership at the university and a new attitude, and truthfully, a hell of a big push from this past year, I can confidently say that I've never seen more cooperation, understanding, and positive change in this relationship. While for an outside person looking in, that may not seem significant, I know that the residents of the city know that it is. We need to start figuring out how we can make this city better for everyone, not arguing over who is right. I think we've seen that shift, and I've seen folks in the city and the university empowered to think what we can do, not try to shift the blame anymore. And finally, even with potential struggles looming, we navigated an incredibly difficult first year of a pandemic. There were a lot of members of our community who came together to help those around us. Our leadership here at the city took action to ensure that we were doing everything we could to mitigate the spread while trying to help those who were in need. As we see some light at the end of the tunnel, albeit even if the distance wavers, I hope we keep those promises and navigate with the same care, compassion, and necessary attention that this issue deserves. I'm proud of my work, even if Chad disagrees. Sorry, Chad. And I am filled with even more pride at those throughout our city and the first responders in the community that truly did everything that we could. I have a few list of thank yous that I'd like to give, and again, I'm sorry it's a little bit long-winded, but it's important, so I'm going to do it. Chief Kim Johnson for stepping in and leading our department through a very difficult time. Adam Park for leading an incredible team with a needed but difficult new direction. I have always appreciated your work, and the city and I are in your and your team's gratitude. Deputy Chief Steve Gonzalez, your counsel and your help navigating sometimes decades-old policy and even the creation of wildly new ones brought necessary opportunity to our work. Without people like you ready to work towards a better city, willing to change, we couldn't be in the place that we are. Tony Williams, for your work building relationships across campus and the community. I know that it's not just you and it's an entire team, but your work and that team's work is a small step towards public safety reimagined. Randy Talaferro, well, I know that you may not be listening right now, and I truly hope you are not and doing something else. You did not get the credit that you deserved in all you did for this region. I recognize it, and I thank you for it. Adam Cummins and Amy Schussler-Schmidt, I know Amy is gone, but I cannot leave without marking the impact she had on our city, both in her community work and business relationships. Adam, I cannot imagine a better fit for you here. It is council's job to create an environment where staff feel empowered to bring us ideas. Some might work, some might not, but that's the point. Without that push, we will stay stagnant, and we fail at that sometimes as a council. I would implore this council to continue viewing these public servants as resources and people who care, figuring it out just like we are, and trying to help in the best way that we can. Adam exemplifies this. I remember fondly at DDA volunteering to go door to door to pitch programming and listening to businesses themselves and what they needed. Let's see more trial, error, and success like this. Truly reimagining how we operate as a city. Emily Gordon, Nicole, and Clerk Schuster's team, you are all saints. I am sometimes confused by how you do all of the many jobs that are required of you, but it is always with grace, a little bit of humility, and passion. and I appreciate every minute of it. Heather Mahano, Wendy Longpre, Justin and Carla, Chris King, Annette, Mr. Fehrenbach, Director Feldposh, I love all of your work, and I've always been thank you for it. Elaine Hardy, thank you for being a smart, dedicated, and fierce advocate for what you believe. This city is forever indebted to you. Sue Webster and Janet Lilly, I do not know if the community will ever truly understand the impact both of you have had, but I hope one day they do. For now, I thank you, and I'm sorry I'm leaving you. Abby Taikaki, Chris Root, Conrad Hittner, Kath Edsel, Chuck Grigsby, Dan Bowman, Peter DeWan, Sam and Alex Hosey, Luke Hackney, Mike Kruger, ASMSU, Rave Lassen, Talise, Sarah Triplett, and so many more that continue to serve our community by being involved. Thank you for your service and thank you for your counsel. To Shanna, Mark, Ruth, and Eric, I thank you for the ability to learn from you. Whether we agreed on everything or not, I hope you know that I have always respected and was always thankful for what you had done for this city. Ron and Dana, you both stepped into an impossible role and did it incredibly well. Sometimes so well that I forgot you had to step into it. I am so excited to see a future with you two in these roles and as leadership in the city. Lisa, I appreciate your willingness to listen to me, to disagree and remain respectfully, and your passion. I hope that you will keep these qualities in your leadership in the future. George, for being a true partner this past year. The dynamic of a city council and manager form of government is weird and difficult, and sometimes it honestly feels like our roles are supposed to disagree. And there were a lot of times that we did. But the thing I appreciated most was your willingness to listen, your willingness to change when it needed to go another way, but your also willingness to teach and support me in areas that I needed it. When I first got thrown into this role, I didn't know if I was going to thrive or continue the trajectory that we were on. But because of people like you, we are where we are today. So I thank you for that. Jesse, first of all, I'm sorry. But at the same time, I'm not, because this job is a gift. And you are already going to be one of the best people that have it, or that will have it. You have always been there for me. Not only as a friend, but as a strong leader. I have no doubt of your success. And of course, I need to thank my fiance, Katura, for sticking with me through it all. I could not have done this without you. I love you. And that brings me to my truly final thoughts. I'm sorry. I have always lived my life from a single mantra: know the bad, see the good. I believe that sometimes, unfortunately, East Lansing really has a problem with seeing the good. I'll try to explain what I mean. Throughout the years here, we have strived to do better. Over the past year, we have passed more and worked harder than I think in any previous year I was on the council. That doesn't happen without a city that is constantly looking and striving for better. But we do love to criticize ourselves. I think sometimes maybe a bit too much. And I hope that if I have brought one thing to this role is a little bit of appreciation. Not only appreciation for the work to come, and there is work to come, and the responsibility of that work, but appreciation of what we have accomplished. Look at where we were last year. Look at where we were 3 years ago. We are in a good place, East Lansing. Sure, there is absolutely more work to do, but I want you to take a look at all that we have done and feel a little bit of pride, because that's the only thing that will keep that change and passion alive. Know the bad, but see the good. There is certainly some bad, but there's a hell of a lot of good. I am proud to have been a small part in that. I said at the beginning of this term, when I was thrust into the role, that I will not always make the right call, and I'll be the first to admit that. But I hope folks know that I really tried, and I'm proud of the work that we did. Thank you for letting me serve. It has been the greatest privilege of my life. Thanks. Okay. City manager, go before I start crying.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just a couple, actually I have a number of comments, so let me start off. So first, under the charter, I have a requirement to consult with council about the appointment of department heads. It is my intent to appoint Kathy DeChambeau to the position of Parks and Recreation Director effective August 23rd. Kathy has been with the city since 2012 as the Environmental Services Administrator, where she oversees solid waste recycling, the Commission on the Environment, a staff person, also significantly the maintenance and upkeep of our parks facilities. She has done an excellent job and is very highly regarded. But prior to that, she served as the Project Energy Manager for the Lansing School District for 10 years. And prior to that, she was in education as a teacher and a coordinator of community education programs. She has a bachelor's degree from Western Michigan University and a master's in human ecology and child development from MSU. After an open and competitive process, it was my selection that Kathy should serve as the next Director of Parks and Recreation, and she is also an East Lansing resident. With that, I can take any questions or comments from council regarding that.
Are there any questions or comments? Go ahead, Councilmember Babcock, and then Mayor Pro Tem.
And, Mr. Mayor, I am truly remiss. I did not give you the encomiums you deserve tonight.
That is all good.
I apologize, and you certainly deserve everything everyone said about you, and I will simply echo their words. Thank you. I would like to say that as the liaison to the Commission on the Environment, I've dealt with Ms. DeChambeau. She is sort of a neighbor of mine. She is an absolutely delightful person, but also incredibly capable, incredibly thoughtful, and a public servant, and I wholly encourage her appointment.
Okay, thank you very much. Mayor Pro Tem.
It was my privilege, along with Councilmember Bacon, to sit in on the final process of the interviews, along with obviously the city manager and department heads and the Parks and Rec Commission. And we actually had some very strong external candidates as well. But I think to me what distinguished Ms. DeChambeau from the rest of the group was the fact that she has just already a deep knowledge of our facilities, and that will be joining us with actionable ideas that can be implemented very quickly because of her deep knowledge. So I am delighted and excited to see her take on this role.
All right, that sounds good.
Thank you. Next, I have a quick comment on the daytime, nighttime, anytime project run by the planning department. Alan Cummins sort of as the head, Tom Fehrenbach and a staff of many have helped him, including interns, Heather Pope and others. Obviously, it's been a very well-received project. It's not just Albert al fresco. It has been all the way back from the farmer's market and all the place-making activities. This project is actually a finalist for the MML Community Excellence Award at the end of September. In Grand Rapids, there'll be 4 finalist communities in which we are one. So very proud of that accomplishment and the team and the hard work they've done to get us there. So not just the people here recognize the hard work, but around the state, certainly a very competitive project in that process. And we look forward to them hopefully prevailing in that. Also wanted to mention that what a pleasure it's been serving with Mayor Stevens. When you had that pause and you said George and you paused, you kind of scared me there for a second, but I got over it. But, you know, obviously last July you were thrust into the role and you have devoted a huge amount of energy, effort, and all of your attention to it. And I think that during a pandemic, you were the right person at the right time. To be out there in the fall, in the winter, going from party to party, trying to encourage people, trying to cajole people with masks. And I was there for a lot of those times, and you put forward above and beyond in your efforts to try to model the right behavior and do the right thing by the residents of East Lansing. So your efforts have always been exemplary. Your service has been, I think, above and beyond what we would expect from somebody in your position. And I certainly wish you well and hope to see great things from you after your Harvard program. And your future trajectory, I'm certain will go up and up. So thank you for your service to the city of East Lansing. It's been a pleasure working with you, Mayor.
Thank you, George.
And that is all I have. Thank you.
And I want to speak to one thing that the city manager said that I didn't put in my speech, but I think it's important to mention. And it's a little bit less on the hopeful and moving forward side, but I do want to mention that this job is difficult. And I'm not talking about the actual role itself. You run for the role. But in this city with such a diverse population, if you'd like to see more people that live, work, have families within the city, that have the time to devote to it, at some point there does need to be a conversation, at least in maybe the mayor and the mayor pro tem's role, about the pay schedule. And the only reason why I mention that is because it won't affect me, so I'm not pushing for myself to get a raise. But I do think it's important because this job is important to have a diverse amount of people represented. And what ends up happening is, and what I had to do, was if you are a young person or you are somebody with kids or family, I quit my job. And while I was able to do that for a year, not a lot of people are. And I think it's important that if we want to move this city forward with a direction that encourages all people to be in the seat, you have that knowledge in the mind that you have to have at least some moderate compensation for it. So that's not the best thing in the world to end on, but I do think that that's important to mention because I'm out and I'm not pushing for myself to get a raise. So there you go. City Attorney.
Great, thank you. I'll say it's great to be here in person and meeting some of you for the very first time tonight. And Mayor Stevens, I don't have much to add except congratulations and best wishes on your future endeavors. I wanted to briefly update council on a couple of the litigation matters that I reported on in my quarterly litigation report last time because there have been a couple of developments. With respect to the two East Lansing Info, Eli versus City of East Lansing FOIA cases, there was, if you'll recall, the first FOIA case, which involved the rent records, there was a summary disposition hearing held on July 15th, and the circuit court judge did rule in favor of the city and granted summary disposition to the city, so that case is being dismissed. With respect to the second Eli lawsuit related to use of force records, Eli, through counsel, did reach out to my office and asked to voluntarily dismiss that lawsuit, so both parties did sign a stipulation to dismiss that action. So we're awaiting the final dismissal orders from the court, but both of those are considered complete from our perspective. With respect to the HEOS litigation, which is the class action franchise fee lawsuit, there is a summary disposition hearing scheduled for this Thursday. It is at the Mason Courthouse in person at 1:00 p.m. for oral argument. Both the city and the plaintiff have filed cross motions for summary disposition on various legal issues, both the substantive merits of the claims as well as things like statute of limitations and failure to state a claim and things like that. So we will, of course, continue to keep council updated via email to the city manager, and that is all that I have to report today.
Thank you very much. All righty, we are on to our consent agenda. I will hand this over to the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. We have the following items on the consent agenda for council consideration. Item 3.1, approve the following appointments or reappointments to boards or commissions. A, John Perry to the Building Board of Appeals for a full term ending December 31st, 2024. Robert Aydukovic to both the Downtown Development Authority and Brownfield Redevelopment Authority for a full term ending June 30th, 2025. C, Babs Kraus to the Senior Commission for a partial term ending December 31st, 2021. D, Mark Meadows to the Senior Commission for a partial term ending December 31st, 2022. E, Brittany Pasden to the Senior Commission for a full term ending December 31st, 2022. F, Kenneth Worth to the Senior Commission for a full term ending December 31st, 2023. 3.2, approve street closures for the MSU Homecoming Parade on October 1st, 2021, including Abbot Road from Burcham to Grand River from 5:30 p.m. to 7:15 p.m., Grand River between Abbot and Farm Lane from 5:30 p.m. to 7:15 p.m., and 7 additional streets listed in this request from 2:30 p.m. to approximately 7:15 p.m. 3.3, approve a contract change to the Fair and Impartial Policing consultation contract with the CNA Corporation. 3.4, set a public hearing for September 7, 2021 on Ordinance 1501 to conditionally rezone a 4.5-acre site at 3225 West Road from RA Residential Agriculture to B5 Community Retail Sales. Item 3.5, approve a resolution accepting the development project agreement for Natural Resources Trust Fund grant number TF20-0169, Patriarch Park Tennis/Pickleball Court renovation in the amount of $300,000 to renovate the tennis and pickleball courts at Patriarch Park. 3.6, approve George Lahannis as the officer delegate to the annual meeting of the Municipal Employees Retirement System on October 7th through 8th, 2021. 3.7, approve a resolution authorizing Nathan Floyd to purchase 4 years of service credit from Municipal Employees Retirement System, MERS. 3.8, approve a resolution recognizing August 31st, 2021 as Overdose Awareness Day in the City of East Lansing. Item 3.9, approve the street closure of all northbound lanes on Harrison Road from Kalamazoo to Michigan Avenue and one southbound lane on Bogue Street from Grand River Avenue to Shaw Lane on Saturday, October 9, 2021, from 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. for the ISO 5K walk, run, walk, and roll race. 3.10, approve a contract with Hubble Roth and Clark Incorporated for the engineering services for fiscal year 2022 congestion mitigation and air quality CMAQ traffic signal optimization on Albert Avenue in an amount not to exceed $34,424 and authorize the city manager to sign. 3.11, approve the extension of the material testing services contract with Professional Services Industries Incorporated through fiscal year 2024. Approve a change order to the contract in the amount of $30,000 and authorize the city manager to sign. 3.12, approve a purchase order in the amount of $20,948.58 to Michigan Specialty Coatings Incorporated to resurface the restrooms, changing floors, and refurbish the shower basins at the East Lansing Family Aquatic Center and authorize the city manager to sign. Funds from this project are available from the Parks and Recreation portion of the income tax. 3.13, approve a use of public right-of-way request for Moonlight Extravaganza, a night to eat, shop, and explore your new downtown, planned for August 30th, 2021. 3.14, approve an application for a farmland development rights agreement under the Farmland and Open Space Preservation Program, Public Act 116. 3.15, add-on, introduce and set for September 7, 2021, Business Agenda Ordinance Number 1505, an ordinance amending the code of the City of East Lansing regarding pavement sealant as adopted by Ordinance Number 1498. Item 3.16, add-on, introduce and set for September 7th, 2021, Business Agenda Policy Resolution 2021-15, an ordinance number 1506, an ordinance to amend Section 8-133 of the Code of the City Code to allow food trucks during neighborhood association block parties. Those are all the items on the consent agenda for council's consideration.
Thank you very much. Would anybody like any item taken off the consent agenda and put onto the business agenda? Okay. I do have a couple of questions because we got a couple of questions from the audience. If we wouldn't mind having somebody from staff, in item 3.3, the CNA contract, give an explanation for the change to that, either Chief Johnson or Deputy Chief Gonzalez. City Attorney, that's fine too.
Sorry, do you want me to speak to that now, or are you putting it on the
Yes, that'd be great.
Sure. So after council approved the agreement, which was subject to any non-material changes, it was sent to CNA, and their legal counsel proposed something that we perceived to be a material change, so we wanted to bring it to council to consider. The material change is in paragraph 18 in the red line version that's part of the council packet. It's entitled Objective Analysis, and it's really the second part of that, which is in blue, that we view as material. But I'll read the entire part if you'll bear with me. The consultant is providing its analytic services on an objective and independent basis. The consultant is willing to explain the results of its research to third parties with the city's permission, or if legally required to do so. However, the consultant is not and shall not be a public advocate for the city or any other party that may be affected by this project. I'll pause my reading there to say CNA's intent in putting that is that by producing this work product, they stand by it, but they are endeavoring to be objective, of course, in providing their services. So they do not see themselves as an advocate for the city, but objectively providing services to the city. What they added after that, their concern, and let me say, a lawyer's job is to look for the worst case scenario and try to plan for that. We're a lot of fun in that sense. And so what CNA's counsel was concerned about was that there would someday be some litigation against the city, and CNA would get some subpoena or document request for potentially thousands of pages of their documents that they would have to produce at their expense. And they wanted something in the contract that would require the city to pay their out-of-pocket costs in having to comply with that kind of subpoena. Because that potentially puts some monetary responsibility on the city, I advise them that's a material change and it would have to come back to council. And so that is what is here. And that language that they propose to add is if consultant is compelled by subpoena or court order to testify or produce documents in any claim or suit filed by a third party against the city will, to the extent permitted by law, reimburse consultant for its actual out-of-pocket costs incurred in producing the testimony or documents. The city is not required to indemnify consultant under any circumstances, nor is the city required to pay any costs associated with any third-party claim or suit made against consultant. That last language was important from my perspective to say this wasn't meaning that if CNA gets sued, that we are responsible for their defense. That is not what this is doing. And to the extent they have some liability, that is on them. This is limited to any costs that they incur if somebody sues the city over their work and they get a document request. I told them it was material and it would have to take it to council. It was important to them, so they said, yes, please go ahead and take it to council.
Okay. I appreciate that explanation. Are there any more questions on that item? Okay, thank you very much. All righty, and then the other item that we did get a question about was 3.1D, which was an approval to appoint Mr. Meadows to the Seniors Commission for a partial term. So I wanted to speak to that a little bit, although I can look at Councilmember Babcock as well. If there's anything that she wants to say on the item. But I was made aware that the Seniors Commission had around 4 vacancies last week. And as the mayor of the city, I felt that was obviously not a good thing in the sense that if one person was not there, they would not have a quorum, which is something that occurred previously. I then communicated with Councilmember Babcock that I'd be conducting interviews. She was more than welcome to come to those interviews as well, and that I would be attempting to make an appointment, or at least in addition to the agenda for this week. While, I know that there are mixed feelings about former council member, former Mayor Meadows' service, I do think that he has a lot of institutional knowledge that is very, very beneficial to the city. He was a Seniors Commission liaison beforehand. And out of the 4 applicants there, these are the 4 applicants that are going to be appointed. So I thought that was more than reasonable. So that's why I'm appointing him there. There's no animosity on my side of this. I did communicate with a couple of members on the commission just to ask opinions about, all of the kind of appointments, especially because, as you'll notice, or maybe, well, you won't notice via the agenda, we actually have a couple of younger people getting appointed to the Seniors Commission that work within the senior population, which is pretty cool. If this gets approved tonight, some folks, or somebody that works with LGBT older adults, as well as somebody that is in the social work and government stateside sphere. So I think those are both really good things. And I think Babbitt Cross has been around the city for long enough that I don't really need to give an explanation for why she deserves to be in the senior commission. But she's a great person. I'll give her that shout out there. So anyway, those are the appointments as I put them in. Councilmember Babcock, did you have anything else that you wanted to add to it?
I think you've covered it.
Okay, great. So, yeah, does anybody, one more time, anybody want anything taken off the consent agenda?
I just have a question.
Yeah.
So item 3.5 about the pickleball and the tennis courts. I've been asked before about the lights at the pickleball courts. And so do those ever go on, or is it, dusk till dawn type thing?
I would have to look if Jim could answer that question. Could you answer the question about if the lights are operational at this point?
The lights are currently not operational. The underground...
Jim, if I could ask you to go to the mic, thanks.
So the lights are currently not operational. The underground wiring actually was cut inadvertently by the contracting crew that was working on the bathrooms on that side. And quite honestly, beyond that, I don't know what where we stand. Wendy Longcree was working on that, and I don't know if that is going to be repaired or not. Because it was underground, I do know that any repair is extensive and going to be difficult to do.
Please keep me posted, or George.
I can get an update as well next week to see the status and what the renovation will do in terms of moving forward.
Thanks.
Yep, I can find out.
Great, thank you very much. Thanks for coming up to the mic, too.
Thanks.
All right, any other questions? All right, seeing none, I'll look for a motion on the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
All right, there is a motion by Councilmember Bacon, a second by the Mayor Pro Tem, soon to be Mayor. Mayor in waiting. All those in favor, or any discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Great. And we had an addition to the agenda, which was a presentation by State Representative Julie Brixie. So, yeah. Oh, no.
Dun, dun, dun. Thank you very much, Mayor and Mayor in Waiting and council members. It is a very great pleasure for me to be here today, although it is also with some sadness, I will add, that Mayor Stevens is leaving us. I have to say that I remember well running into you, knocking doors, and seeing you on the campaign trail, and seeing your enthusiasm, your energy, and your really, really great work ethic in terms of getting elected to this position starting out. I don't think anyone then would have imagined what lay ahead for all of us, or lie ahead for all of us. My mom is getting really mad at me right now for my grammar. But you have done an amazing job serving this community. And so I, along with several of my colleagues, including Senator Hertel, Representative Anthony, and the governor and the lieutenant governor, have this tribute to present to you. And this is one time when I think the framed tribute is actually going to make it to your wall. And we give a lot of these out, but this is a really special one because you have done something that I don't think anyone could have imagined, and that is to step up during a pandemic and take over as mayor of East Lansing and insert yourself wholly into that role. Seeing you out there basically doing code enforcement because it's the right thing to do, to talk to people. I mean, how many mayors do code enforcement in their communities? You know, but how many mayors are serving in a pandemic? And so I really appreciate the care that you have exhibited in your brief tenure as mayor of this city, and I think the city is very much better off because of it. So, you know, knowing how, I'll read just a little bit of this. Overnight, Mayor Stevens became the city's youngest mayor, thrust into that position in the early months of the COVID-19 pandemic. Knowing how crucial and difficult it would be to keep a college town under control, he took decisive action, implementing a mandatory mask policy in East Lansing as one of his first mayoral moves. In addition, he took it upon himself to walk the streets of East Lansing on weekend nights, where he handed out masks and talked to students about the importance of enforced gathering limits and following COVID-19 protocol. Thank you so much for all the work that you have done keeping us safe and taking care of our community. We will miss you. We wish you the best in your future endeavors, and we hope to welcome you back with open arms upon the completion of your education.
Thank you so much. Oh, geez, I was not expecting that. Whew. Okay. All right. You know what? As it's about an hour in, I'm gonna say before we get into our presentation on the pension retiree healthcare update, we take a quick bathroom break, about 5 minutes, and then we will be back to our regularly scheduled program. So I will see everybody at 8:10. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Welcome back. Our next item on the agenda tonight is Business Agenda 4.1, Pension and Retiree Healthcare Update. I will hand this over to the City Manager, Mr. Lahanas.
Thank you, Mayor. So we're pleased to provide a pension and Opeb update. Opeb is other post-employment benefits, but really is just a way of saying retiree health care. So this is an update on pension plan and our retiree health care plan. It's timely to provide this update because in June we received and then July we received 2 actuarial reports, one for the pension program that's done every year, and the Opeb valuation is done every 2 years. So we'll walk through a little bit of a background, if you will, to start off. So why don't we switch to one slide? So we actually started managing these benefits many years ago. I came to the city in actually 1999 and was started with the defined benefit plan. But all the way back in 1993, the city began removing retiree health care as a promise for new hires. And that plan actually, that move back then has actually helped the city very much financially because we're almost 30 years in on that now. And in lieu of that retiree health care promise, we have what's called a retiree health savings account. So we're putting money aside and the employee's putting money aside to pay for that benefit. 1999, we moved to defined contribution for a number of our groups. 2010, I think we realized that defined contribution was not necessarily the way to go in terms of recruitment and retention of the workforce and getting people to retire. So we then moved to a new program at that point, which was the hybrid retirement plan. A hybrid is a combination of a modest pension benefit with a DC plan in one. And what it is supposed to be a cost-controlling plan because it provides for a later retirement age than a standard pension, and it also provides for no possibility for benefit improvements, which is one of the common problems of a pension program, is when you do improvement, you end up with a greater unfunded liability. And then in 2011, we had our most significant changes to retiree public safety benefits. We actually changed the retirement plan for new hires for police moving forward and fire moving forward. At that point, we lowered the multiplier, we removed the cost of living, and actually increased the retirement age by 5 years. And we also reduced significantly the retiree health care. There was still a promise of retiree health care for officers and firefighters, and that was condensed to age 55 to 65, so a closed-ended obligation from that point on. So we think what we look at now, in any employment opportunity, any hires that we have, we're really hiring under what we think is a cost-controlling, sustainable benefit, but it's still a good enough benefit that makes us competitive in terms of recruitment and retention. So next slide, please. So what this shows, I think, pretty clearly is that way back in 2009, the city began a strong focus on funding these benefits. And you can see that we began by focusing on Opeb because there was a GASB, and I'm not going to know the GASB, where you actually had to begin recording your obligations for retiree health care. Sorry, this mask is choking me up. So you can see that we started in 2009, putting about 1.7 million and so on, all the way to 2015. Significantly in 2015, we switched our focus to pension because a number of things had occurred. Our funding ratio had begun to slip somewhat dramatically because post-2008, there were significant losses in 2008. We also had a situation where our number of retirees was expanding kind of dramatically because over the period from 2000 to 2020, we largely have the boomer generation moving off into retirement. So the city is actually a smaller city, fewer employees, but we have more retirees sort of going through the system. So this is kind of a one-time pain point for us, if you will, regarding pension obligations. So we switched from funding Opeb to supplemental pension payments. And you can see there the switch right away to $2 million in 2015, fiscal year 2016. So you'll see those two switches between 16 and 15. 15 is calendar year, 16 is fiscal year. And then we obviously went on and funded that as well. So do you want to switch to the next slide? So this really shows what we've done in terms of supplemental pension payments. You can see that basically starting back in fiscal year 2016, we started with payments all the way up to fiscal year 2020 was the first time we began using income tax dollars. So overall, at this point, we have set aside approximately $12.5 million of general fund dollars into the pension program and set aside $7.5 million from income tax into the pension program. So about $20 million at this point in additional funding over and above what the premium was determined to be. So we think that's obviously great news, and we're pleased that we've been able to do that over the last decade in terms of funding OPEB and pension. So significantly, we also have budgeted here an additional $5 million payment for fiscal year 2022. That payment has not been done yet. And we also have $2.5 million out of the $20 million that don't show up on the current actuarial report because those payments were made after January 1 of this past year. So those payments have already been made, but they're not reflected in our funding at this point. So essentially, that's hopefully going to provide a little bit of a boost for our pension program for the next valuation. Can we go ahead and switch to the next slide? So a little bit of the situation that's going on with us for our pension is it's kind of like we're running down the, to use a football analogy, we're running down the field towards the goal, and the goal has moved a little bit on us. And now these are actually good changes, but they still sort of make it a little bit harder in terms of our funding ratio. 2 years ago, what MERS did was they changed from 775 assumption of interest. So they're assuming that all of your assets will make 7.75% return per year. And then that's baked into their equation. They changed that to 735. So that assumption means that our unfunded accrued liability, the amount we owe, increases because we'll be making less interest. So that change 2 years ago put us in a little bit of a challenge. And this past year, the new valuation 2020 changed demographic assumptions. Now, the good news is our retirees are living on average 2 years longer per person. The bad news for the pension program is that means we have to fund 2 additional years per person. So that's the assumption change we saw this year. But in spite of those changes over the past 2 years, we've still managed to move the funding percentage up, which I think is actually great news. So when we look at this, we see our funding ratio has gone from 52% to 54%. We asked our actuaries in July to tell us what would have happened if we did not put this additional some $20 million into the plan. Where would we be now? We would be 47% funded. Instead, we're 54% funded. So obviously, we see that as a very positive move in the right direction and got us out of sort of that danger zone of going below 50% funded. I also want to see if you can you move the box of our presentation just so I can show that final column? Is that possible to move that or no? So what you see here also in the top set of column at 7.35%, I'm in the top box, you see that from 2020 where we are now, we're 54% funded. These projections of the 10 million estimated contribution, and you see next to that the funding percentage moving up 55, 56, 58, 60, 62% over the next 5 years. That is without us making our supplemental payments. So we would anticipate plus $5 million or more per year that we will be moving this much faster over the coming 5 years. So I think overall we're reasonably optimistic that we've kind of turned the corner through the worst of our pension program. The passage of the income tax has obviously been a tremendous help, but we started this process years ago through benefit changes and also through making supplemental payments. Now I want to just jump to the last slide, which is the OPEB slide, retiree health care. And here we see really good news. You saw that we funded back in 2009 to 2015 about $9.8 million into the OPEB trust. That money has essentially doubled and is now almost $20 million in the trust. Significantly, we have not used that money to pay for retiree health care. That money is sitting there and building over time, and we have no immediate need or intent of using those resources and continue to let them build. So at this point, the prior study 2 years ago, we were 38% funded for retiree health care, which may sound bad, but compared to other employers, we're actually that's actually a very good number. And we are now 48.2% funded, almost 50% funded for retiree health care, again, not using those assets. So again, puts us in a good position. So overall, I think that the pension report is good news, moving in the right direction. We're about 2.5 years into the income tax. That is a 12-year plan to fix that. And we are sort of at the start, but seeing things moving in the right direction. And the OPEB, or Retiree Healthcare Trust, turns out to be very good news, going from 38 to 48% funded, and again, with no need to utilize that money. You could use that in terms of an additional reserve where 4 and 5 years from now, if that's at 75%, 80% funded at some point, you will be able to use that money to reimburse ourselves for retiree health care, thereby offsetting dollars from the general fund. So it's almost a dollar for dollar replacement for general fund dollars. So that's the benefit of having that trust building up for the future. So overall, I think we're in a reasonably good situation. Obviously, we've had some challenges in terms of actuarial assumptions getting a little bit tighter on us. Those are good assumption changes because they make the plan financially stronger. We've also had a challenge in terms of this generational cohort of boomers moving through the pipeline. But I think overall we're moving in the right direction with the pension plan.
So I do have a couple of questions for you, and then of course we'll open it up to council members. So if we could go back to the MERS 2020 evaluation. So, I mean, clearly, you know, we're making progress here, and a lot more progress than we were before. But as members of the community, obviously voted for the income tax with the goal that in that 12 years we would largely address our issue. And what do you see as the goal, the benchmark that we need to hit to achieve that? Just as, you know, the state continues to try and push fully funded pensions, as well as you know, MERS keep pushing down the goalpost.
Yep. So obviously the future will tell, and there's lots of variables here. I think that by the time the income tax expires 10 years from now, the city will largely be in the direction of being fully funded. There's a lot of variables there, so it's hard to say that with a high degree of certainty. But I think it's reasonable to assume that we'll be 90% funded or 100% funded at that point. Again, you know, I'm not Warren Buffett. I can't make predictions in that. But when you look at the percentages of the additional $5 to $5.5 million contributions we're making, the plan for MERS without our additional contributions was to get us to 100% funded after 20 years, essentially at 2040. We would have been fully funded, is the MERS plan. That's their actuarial assumptions. That's without the $5 million payments per year. So our expectation is that we will get there well before that. This is kind of a generational problem we have here. This is a long time getting to this point, and it's going to be a long time getting back out of it. But I think we have a good, steady plan. I mean, also you realize that the people who we're supporting now, we have some 400 retirees that are active right now, relying on benefits from the city of East Lansing. Those people worked their service 20, 40, 50, even 50 years ago with the city of East Lansing, and we've made obligations and made promises to these people for those benefits. So I think it's very important that we live up to those promises, and we're certainly doing our part to make sure that's there for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, I mean, just speaking to some of the changes that were made before, I mean, obviously, you know, in keeping with those promises, but at some point, you know, the promises that we made change, right, with different retirees. So, you know, while the goalpost moves away from us, maybe from MERS on our end, are you expecting that that liability to just really decrease over time just because we're not going to have it?
Yeah, I think that if I were here 10 more years, I'm going to be, Jill will have a very financially strong city a decade from now. So I kind of joke that Jill and I were at a point in time, Jill's the finance director, where we're going to have 20 or 25 years of service where we're righting the ship. And it's not necessarily the most glamorous thing to do, but it's an important thing for leaving the community in a better financial situation in the future. I think that the changes we made in 2010 and 2011 are providing a baseline benefit that is good enough to recruit and retain. So I don't see a need to change the benefit program at this point in any way. And certainly we're holding the line on benefit improvements, and we'll be doing no benefit improvements, certainly under my watch, that I would recommend at this point into the future.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions from council members?
I do have.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, at risk of making myself, is this on? Sorry. Can we go back to the Opeb? I am about to ask a really dumb question. So why do we have the luxury of just letting that sit and grow, and we can't do that with other parts of our pension?
Because we have always the Opeb obligation. Sorry, you're right. I'm looking at you and talking. I should be talking to the mic. So the Opeb obligation started as a pre-funding requirement, I believe, in 2007. Jill, do you want to tell me and help me out here? When did the GASB come in requirement to start pre-funding.
Thank you for approaching the mic.
All these in-person protocols that we're not used to.
I know. So the GASB changed how we had to report. So we had to begin reporting the liability. We always reported it in our financial statements, but we had to start showing the numbers on the face of the statements, which was kind of the impetus for governments to start pre-funding.
Yep.
So yes, I would say it was 2008.
2008.
And then there was another GASB who changed how it all worked again.
Yep.
But yes.
So the reason also is because we have been paying out pension benefits continuously from the plan. The plan itself pays the pension benefit. The city has never directly paid a pension benefit. Healthcare was paid out of the city's general fund throughout our history. So we've always had it as a part of our general fund obligation. We pay directly for retiree healthcare. So the fact that the trust sits there and we haven't had to rely on it was because we've always had it as a part of our budget. So it will be a windfall to us in a sense in the future when we do rely on this.
So we are paying those, we're just paying them out of a separate fund.
We call it pay-as-you-go. So
Okay.
right now, we're basically doing it as pay-as-you-go, and then we have this pre-funding piece. So
Okay.
this pre-funding is kind of like setting aside in a savings account with the goal of getting it to 100%. And then once you're there at 100 or higher, you could start using that and not do pay-as-you-go anymore.
Okay.
So then you no longer have that expense in the general fund. You now have the $2 million to do what other goals you have.
Thank you.
You're
I don't
welcome.
know why that wasn't obvious, but I appreciate the very clear explanation. Thank you.
Other questions for council members? Yeah, go ahead, Councilmember Babcock.
Thank you. I was promised no numbers, no math, which is why I went to law school, but, so bear with. But are we keeping up? I mean, my worry is that we're not doing enough, that there's a chasm opening between what we're doing, which is impressive and an effort, but what we should be doing, that we're actually falling short no matter how much we're doing.
Like I said, there's been a lot of things over the last decade that have accelerated our funding ratio declining. In 2015, we got a 20-year actuarial report that showed our funding ratio dropping to 48%, probably about the time we are right now. That was what caused the flashing alerts to go off in 2015 and caused the switch from Opeb to pension. And at that point, talked to council and paneled a financial health team in 2016 to begin working on the issue. 2017 in January, they issued their report. The report was to pass the income tax to fix the finances of the pension infrastructure and to continue to fund the current operations to an extent. So we saw this coming 6 and 7 years ago more specifically, and we've taken these pretty aggressive steps of the income tax, of pre-funding, to stop that dip into the 40s and to turn it around more quickly and more aggressively. And you can see from the 20 to 25 billion that we've put in that it has done just that. We never dropped below 50%. We would have been at 47% had we not done the additional payments, and now we're at 54. So I think confronted with a significant challenge, staff, council, the public took the steps. Staff was supported by citizens at just over 60%, this solution. So I think we're on the right track from that respect. But and it is, the funding ratio going up is the right direction. As long as that ratio is going up, we're going in the right direction. There may be years when it dips, flattens, and goes back up again. We got to keep going on the trend. So this is a 20-mile march. We just got to keep going in that direction. And as long as it's going up over years, that's the direction we want to be.
Well, I'm sorry, at what year are we supposed to reach 100%?
So ideally, MERS had a 20-year a funding. They used to be on a 30-year rolling amortization for unfunded liability. In 2016, they said they were going to go to a 20-year fixed. So the report, I believe, called for us to be fully funded before 2040 or by 2040. Is that right around the time? Or 2041?
I think it's 2042.
Okay.
And so there was the 30-year average. We have closed groups, we have open groups. Every group had a different amortization period if it was closed. And so what I believe they did is took an average of all those years and then said, you have this many years to get there. So we went from 30, not quite to 20. Some people jumped all the way down to 20. So I think we were at 26 or 27.
Are we going to make it where we are now?
What's that?
Are we going to make it?
Where we are now? That was what she-
Yeah, I think we would have made it, anyway by 2040 with the MERS, the plans we had, that MERS was setting out in terms of their payments. The challenge we wanted to do was avoid this peaking up of the premium over the next decade where it became unsustainable. And so what we did was looking in the future, we said, we don't know if we can sustain current services and endure this increasing payment. So by making additional payments now, we're taking the peak off of that future payment. So we're not going to ever get to, the goal is to never get to a $16 million payment, keep it at $10 million. So I think that I'm optimistic that this is the fix.
So let me maybe ask a question on the same track as Councilmember Babcock. So obviously we've gotten the estimations before about where those payments were ramping up. And I think that we've actually had this before, and I'm not going to ask that it gets pulled up now because it'd be difficult to just kind of pull it up. But could we get something resent to the council on, now that we're making these supplemental payments, if we have at least a general idea that we're going to be making this similar, if not more, in supplemental payments over the next 10 years, that we have the income tax? Just an estimation again, and I know this happened during the income tax process, but of when those payments start to go up and then start to go down, and then when we get to kind of 100%. I think that, obviously we saw the payments really, really ramp up. Originally, what would have been probably around now and over the next couple of years, getting up there into 14 million. But I think what Councilmember Babcock is asking for is, now that we have the income tax and it's in place, we know at least generally how much we should be getting back, or conservatively, Director Feldbush, can we get some kind of estimation of where those payments expect to be in the next 10 years?
Yeah, so MERS does offer the ability to do what they call a ballpark estimate. So it's not a full actuarial study, but we've had these ballpark estimates before, so we could do a couple things. We could recirculate the ones that we have.
Yeah.
I actually did one in the fall of 2020, and that was part of our PA 202, which is our underfunded pension reporting with the state of Michigan, and we have to show them proof that we're on the right path and we're doing what we said we were going to do. So I do have something from them in 2020. And then we have the previous ones during the income tax discussions. And then we also have the 20-year projection that George is referencing, which does show the drop to under 50% funded, and, required contributions up to, I think, $15 million. So yes, we can recirculate all of that, but I can also ask for another ballpark estimate saying, here's our plan, tell us what this looks like. And that would give us a better idea of where we are at what point in time. Of course, there's going to be a lot of disclaimers to it of any assumption change is going to change this. Any, variation from the assumptions is going to change this. So all good, right? All good things to do and look at, but numbers will change from the estimates. I will say that takes, I think, 30 to 40, I think it's 30 business days, so it's about 45 calendar days to get those studies done. But yeah, I can ask that.
Yeah, that'd be great. I think that it is important, folks in the community are going to be fairly involved in, obviously, the election process this year, and this is going to be an issue, so I think it's good to have the information out there. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Leave yet. George kind of breezed over it on the area of kind of life expectancy and that portion of it. That's kind of hard to control for. Where, on the bell curve, where is the bolus of the people that will participate, and where do they fall within that? Now, there's a 2-year variable in there. It's kind of showing, like, where are they? That's kind of going to be a bigger determinant of how it goes from here.
So at this point, we've still been on the upswing of the pension plan receiving more participants. So at this point, we haven't gone over the hump, so to speak. Yep. So I think that, like I said, we're at almost 400 retirees, which is a significant number. The average age of our retirees is
close to 70.
Pretty close to 70. So I mean, there's people all across that age range, but like I said, we are in the midst now of a challenge that developed 30 and 40 years ago. When we talked to our actuaries in 2013 and 14 and 15 looking at this, their comment to us was that 70 to 75% of your costs have already gone out the door. So that's the glut of people going out the door to retirement that, we're adding retirees and, we're a smaller organization now, and frankly, people are enjoying nice long retirements, which is great. But, that's harming our plan.
I think that's the tricky actuarial piece, because that can keep moving. We know life expectancy is moving, a moving target as it is right now. So I think that's something, I don't know how we look at that or how we look at that long term, but I saw it was a 2-year adjustment so far, correct?
Yeah, this demographic change was about a 2-year adjustment is what our MERS reps told us. And they do experience in demographic studies, I believe, every 5 years in terms of demographics. So we would not expect an age change in the near future, but MERS is the one that runs the plan.
Not to be morbid, so we're at 400 now, and we haven't peaked in terms of people who are retiring under our current plans that we are funding. Do we have about an approximate number of how many retirees will be within the system when we do peak, and about when that might happen?
That's all supposed
Obviously,
to be...
I'm wishing everyone a long, healthy, and happy retirement.
So that's all a part of the MERS report, so we can get that data to show what are the age distribution of people and what are they seeing, because they're supposed to be making those projections to look at what are people's salaries, what are their salaries going to be when they retire. All of those things are supposed to be a part of their computation. So
just for my own, curiosity seeking, I would be curious to know what our peak looks like.
Yeah.
Any other questions for members of council? All right, I appreciate that. Thank you, Director Felposh. Thank you, Mr. Lahanas.
Thank you.
All righty, we are on to our next item, which is consideration of a resolution to amend the budget to reduce business license entertainment fees. This is Adam Cummins. Thank you for being with us.
Good evening, council. Good to see you guys face to face. First time. My first public meeting, city council meeting.
Yeah, welcome.
Being with the city. So before you tonight is a request to consider a resolution to amend the budget to reduce business licenses and entertainment licenses for those businesses that timely file complete license applications and all required corresponding documents on or before August 31st, 2021. So if you recall, on April 27th, council passed a resolution to do exactly this. However, the deadline for submitting paperwork associated with the business and entertainment license, the deadline was June 30th. There were approximately, I believe 34 businesses that did not submit that paperwork on time by the deadline. And this resolution has been amended to reflect a new deadline of August 31st to give us a little more time to work with those businesses and get the required paperwork. The other thing attached to this is, per the resolution passed in April, those businesses that did not submit the required paperwork by June 30th were required to then pay those license fees. And so what we're requesting council to consider is waiving those fees for those that do submit the paperwork by August 31st.
Okay, great. And then, give us a cost estimate of this. I know that there's a few numbers in here, but.
A cost estimate? Yeah. So, again, this resolution has already been, the costs have already been factored into.
We already went through it, yeah.
But with the 34 businesses, it was approximately $22,000.
Okay, great. Other questions for Mr. Cummins? All righty, thank you very much. So I'm going to make a motion I'm going to move to approve the amended business license fee reduction for fiscal year 2021 dated 8/10/21. Is there a second? All right, second. Any discussion? All right, it's great. And I appreciate the work that's being done just to get people in compliance and not kind of penalized during a difficult year. So, thank you. All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Great.
Who seconded that? Mr. Bacon?
Yeah, it was Councilmember Bacon. I was going to say the Mayor Pro Tem.
I will.
Yeah. All right. We will move on to item 4.3, which is consideration of the appointment of 2 council members to interview Police Oversight Commission candidates. So the reason why this is on the agenda is because we don't very often have a new commission. Normally, the liaison to a commission would go through and either interview candidates with staff and the chair of that commission. But of course, we don't have a chair right now because this is a new commission. And given the fact that this is a very, very important process, I think it was good to be able to at least talk about this here to establish what the interview process, or at least who would be conducting the interviews. We have received, how many applicants at this point? Assistant to the Council, Emily? Do you know off the top of your head?
20. Yes.
20?
Yep.
Great. And so the process of interviewing these candidates is going to take some time, and we just wanted to establish who would be doing that. So I am looking for volunteers here, although I will say I would appreciate a volunteer from, oh, and he already raised his hand. Councilmember Bacon, obviously being the one that was on the study committee, I think is probably one of the right choices to be on the interviewee side of this. But is anybody else interested in going forward with being Councilmember Bacon second? Mayor to be?
Yeah, I consider this to be kind of one of the major things that's definitely going to happen while I am the head of the city.
That's fair.
And I am willing to serve in this capacity. I would be willing to entertain anybody that felt very strongly about it, but otherwise I'm happy to serve.
This is an open discussion, so if anybody does have any thoughts, objections, anything like that. All right, great. Well, then I will move that we appoint Councilmember Bacon and the Mayor Pro Tem, Mayor-to-be, Jesse Gregg, to be the ones that interview the applicants for the Police Oversight Commission and give a recommendation to the full council for approval. Is there a second on that? Seconded by Councilmember Babcock. Go ahead, Emily.
About 40 applicants.
Okay,
so
just kidding. I
that's
thought
quite
that
a bit
number was
more than I
bigger,
thought.
but I didn't want to. All right, great. But I didn't have it in front of me. So
Well,
great.
That's going to be great.
So good job. Now that your job is doubled. That's super fun. But appreciate you guys volunteering. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. All righty.
But Jackson's good.
Second on that?
Oh, I believe there was a second from Councilmember Babcock. Yep.
Can I just say one comment about
Yep.
that? So obviously, this is going to be a really intense process to interview 40 people. I was thinking it was 26 for some reason. We must have had a whole bunch more. But I also think that it is going to be worth the time, especially since this commission has been, gosh, I mean, it was started before I was elected, so more than 2 years, and then I would say almost maybe a year before then, at least half a year. And just an incredible amount of work went into the formation of this by our study committee, and I think to honor that work that was done, and then also to give us the best chance going forward to have it be successful, I think it is worth it to put the effort in to talk to the people who are interested in serving, to make sure that we have the strongest body possible as we launch this new commission. So it's going to be a lot of work. Ron?
We're good to go.
We're
Just
going to hang out a lot, apparently. I'm hoping some of them at least can be by Zoom.
Yeah, we'll get it figured out. Just a quick comment on with the 40 members, people who aren't selected, if we can keep retention and on those individuals, because those are the kind of people who want to participate. I'd like to not lose track of them, the people who aren't selected. I don't know how we do that, but just to keep, when we have other opportunities, because that's the kind of energy we've been looking for,
So looking forward to getting started sooner rather than later, I guess, if we've got that many. So there is some urgency, obviously, to getting that board seated, but I think it's worth it to take the time.
Great. All right. And there was a vote in favor, I believe. Hold on, give me a sec. Okay. Now that we are, was there something, Emily, that you wanted to?
Just an announcement about the next meeting, but that was the only thing.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, are you set with that one?
Yeah.
Okay, just an announcement about the special meeting on Thursday at 7 o'clock here at Hannah,
Okay, great.
next
Thank you.
Thursday. Thursday, the 19th, yes.
Yeah, and that will be for the process of appointing a council member for the vacancy and also the election of the mayor pro tem, I believe. Is that correct, Mayor to be?
Yes, I kind of feel like there's one other thing on that agenda. I mean, obviously, we're going to be roasting you.
Yep, that's okay.
Yeah, those are the two big things. Oh, my ceremonial swearing in. My kids want to come and cheer. I don't
Great.
know. So that's just my personal thing.
All righty, come here.
Gavel it out.
Come here. You and me are gaveling together. That was the last item on the agenda.
Midnight o'clock.
All right, fair enough. Well, that was the last item on the agenda today. Thank you very much. It has been a pleasure serving.